Do you believe you currently know what loving yourself actually means? Like, what does it mean to put yourself at the center, to love yourself, and to take care of yourself? Do we all know? We all know theoretically sort of what it means. It means spend less time on other people and focus more on yourself. But that theory is actually what they want you to believe. They want you to believe that by becoming more selfish, caring less about others, and wasting your time watching more TV shows means you're loving yourself more. In fact, self love has nothing to do with that. And self love has everything to do with unpacking all the ways in which you personally are unloving to yourself. Let's go. The number one way in which people show the opposite of love to themselves is, of course, in the way they speak to themselves when they talk to themselves in private or inside their head. And most people wouldn't speak to their worst enemy, let alone friends and family, the way they speak to themselves. Many times we call ourselves stupid, not good enough, and even if we don't use those specific words, every time we effectuate a comparison between ourselves and somebody we see on social media or somebody we see at work that we think is better than us, in that comparison, you show an act of telling yourself you're not good enough and you'll never be this and you'll never amount to this. And you never stop and bother to correct and be like, okay, but this person has nothing to do with what I can achieve and what I can be and what I like. You know, they're out there living a separate life, a parallel life to me. It's got nothing to do with my image and who I am in the world. And in order to reverse that, what you actually have to do is go the opposite way. And the opposite way is you need to speak to yourself the way you would speak to a 5-year-old child that you adore, your child. In this case, the inner you is the child and the person who's speaking is the parent, right? And then you speak to this child in a manner that's exaggerated, right? You tell them you love them several times a day. You tell them, I love you so much. You tell them you are so beautiful. Even if they're not the most beautiful, you are so smart. Even if you know they're not the smartest person, but you know you need to speak like that to your child in order for your child to gain that confidence. Not once in a while. You need to speak to that child like that every single day. And if you're able to change your self-talk and bring yourself in, even just for a few days, even just for a week, even just for 10 days, just say to yourself, I am going to speak to myself as I am my adored child. And I'm going to tell myself I love myself 10 times a day. Okay, I'm gonna tuck myself to sleep and tell myself I'm gonna have wonderful dreams because I'm a wonderful woman or girl and I deserve everything good in this life. And then I'm going to give myself a kiss and be like, sweet dreams, sweetheart, you deserve everything. And if you're able to do that, you will see immediate changes in your life because the self-talk has the most effect on our self-image, and because of that, circumstances in our lives will be affected positively. The second thing you need to assess is how you speak about yourself to others and how you present yourself. Do you present yourself as a person who has made many mistakes, a person to whom a lot has happened, and you are now damaged goods? Now, in projecting this damaged goods image in the world, because over the last 30 years or so, we were taught we should be completely honest about what happened to us. We should live it over and over again. We should be in therapy for 20 years until we get over it. But of course, we can never really get over it. And we should tell everybody about how we are victimized, how we are abused, and those people just accept us and love us. But what happens is those people, at the most, they feel sorry for us. Those people at the most would think, yes, this person is damaged goods, and because of that, maybe I'll be able to help her in certain ways, or maybe I need to stay away because, you know, she is actually dragging me down. And so if you present a self-image of damaged goods about yourself, then do not expect that the world will return this unconditional love to you. And because they don't return this unconditional love to you, because they return this rejection to you, actually, especially men, what will happen is you will further down confirm this you have this confirmation bias that you are damaged goods, that nobody wants you, and that you'll constantly be rejected. Please, the way to fix this is be private about your life. All the struggles that you have are just within you. Do not relive them again. Do not mention them again. If you're done with your therapy, just move on and decide to break with this person that you were, with this person to whom these things have happened. Do not take this baggage and place it on another person and say, here, now love me with all this trauma. I know this is what they tell you to do, and this was the old thought pattern, but as you can see, it doesn't return to us anything good. Very few people can love other people who are damaged goods, who have been traumatized, because, you know, they're wary. Life is now really tough in general, right? So they're like, can this person who is damaged goods stand by me and go through life in a way that, you know, she would help me, or he would help me, or he'd be able to stand up for me in this world in which strength is so required. Number three, your ego doesn't want to admit mistakes to itself. So every mistake is damaging to our self-esteem because the consequences of it are always negative, and because of that, our self-esteem is affected. Whether or not you choose to internalize that or not, it will still happen. So what I tell my queens is every mistake is okay, every loop is not okay. You have to learn from every mistake, and you have to choose consciously no longer to make that mistake. This applies not just to our interactions with others, but for example, to our food choices, to something simple like that, right? When there is extra food left over, do you say, okay, I am not hungry, I'm going to check in with my temple, with my body, and be like, am I hungry? No, I'm going to throw away this leftovers unless I'm going to eat them tomorrow. But you should never ever say, I'm going to throw this leftovers inside my body, right? Your body now is internalizing this self-esteem thing, as in, I am the person who has to process through either my body or my energetic field all these other things that are coming to me, right? So every time you make a mistake like that, where you drink too much, or you have an interaction with, let's say, a man you knew he was wrong for you from the beginning, just move on from it right away. Just be like, this was a mistake. My ego is, I will have my ego identify this as a mistake, and I choose never to make this mistake again. I'm feeling sick from this cake that I ate. I'll never do this again. I'll never eat this again. Promise yourself that you will be kinder and more loving to yourself. Number 4 is boundaries, and boundaries are very closely related to mistakes, because every time you permit someone to break your boundary, it's like you're making a mistake, right? You're always going to feel uncomfortable. Boundaries surround our self, our good self, our loving self, the self that we know within this space, within this container, we feel safe, we feel loved, we feel at least at peace and in harmony. But the moment somebody comes in and breaks the boundary, unless you're going to say, you broke my boundary and I'm not going to accept that, right? Because it's going to happen. People break your boundaries every day, right? But what you have to do is like, no, you will not treat me like this. If you internalize that treatment and you accept that treatment, your self-image will take a hit, and your self-image will be like, I guess you're not the kind of woman you thought you were. You're not the kind of person, you're the kind of woman who has to put up with a guy cheating on you, or you're the kind of woman who's going to be texted every other day or every 3 days, or mostly for a hookup, because that's who you are, right? That's what you're accepting when you're allowing a breakage of these boundaries. Never ever break a boundary. It doesn't matter what comes out of it. It doesn't matter if you feel like, oh, yes, I'm going to do this thing and maybe I'll be promoted, or maybe I'll get this man. Believe me, there's a better way. If you're loving yourself, you will understand, and you'll always believe there's a better way that doesn't violate who you are in order to make a certain outcome comes to pass. If you allow it to come via breakage of the boundary, it's going to fall apart later on anyways. And finally, number 5, you don't center your day around your inspiration, around the person that you are, and around the contribution that you can make to the world, right? We think the contribution we can make to the world is like, okay, I have to wake up, I have to make sure everyone's packed up, all the dishes are cleaned, everything is done. And by the time you're finished that, and by the time you put in your 8 hours at work and the commute, you're finished now. I understand you do want to watch the Kardashians just to get out of the space of your life and your head and all of that, right? But in fact, if you start your day with inspiration, with planning your day around yourself, what is it that, even if you have a full-time job or kids, sit down the night before and be like, how's my day going to go tomorrow, such that I have my moments when I'm centered on my own. And maybe that just means saying no to having lunch with a coworker that you know it's just going to waste your time. And as opposed to that, you're going to have lunch by yourself, listening to a podcast that can teach you something. This is what is meant. Put yourself first. What would be most beneficial for me that would happen today in order to advance me, in order to allow me in the future to contribute more to others? That's what is meant by centralizing your life around yourself. I hope you enjoyed this. I also have a TikTok account under the same handle where I have a lot of material on mindset and manifestation. Talk soon.